We can do larger deals when we gather together with more people.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the Gentle Art of Crushing It show, where we focus on learning and sharing with our listeners all there is to know about how to create success in our lives. This show stands on the shoulders of giants. Our mission is to empower and inspire our listeners to create the life of their dreams whilst having a blast in the process. Let's celebrate life together. Welcome to the show.
All right, welcome to the Gentle Art of Crushing It Passive Investing Edition podcast. My name is Randy Smith, and I'm your host today, and I'm also the founder of Impact Equity. Our sole goal with both the podcast and Impact Equity is to educate and inspire the passive investor. So today we have got an amazing guest, a very good friend of mine, Ray Hightower. Ray, welcome to the podcast.
Randy, thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you. So why don't we just go ahead and jump right in, and can you walk us through a little bit about your background and how it was that you found passive investing?
Sure, I'd be glad to do that. My background is technology. I have a computer science degree. I ran a technology company for 21 years in Chicago, built it from scratch and ran that and sold that. And I was looking around for my next venture. I knew I wanted to do something in real estate. And at the time I was living in LA, I had moved from Chicago to LA. I was living in LA, looking around at real estate deals, thinking I might buy a 10 flat or 12 flat or something like that. And I stumbled across this idea of syndication and syndicating. And when I learned about that, I said, oh my goodness, you mean I can get together with other people and we can do much larger deals than any one of us could do alone? And that got me excited. In between there, I decided to move to Arizona. I can talk about that in detail if you like at some point.
Sure.
And I did my first passive deal in February of 2021. With a remarkable team, and ever since then, I've continued to invest passively and actively.
Are you interested in real estate investing but don't know where to get started or think you don't have the time or money? Are you stuck in your W-2 because the golden handcuffs make it hard to walk away? If this sounds like you, check out impactequity.net and schedule some time to talk with the founder, Randy Smith. Randy went from massive income to leaving his W-2 through passive income, and he can help you do the same. www.impactequity.net.
Awesome. Okay. So yeah, IT guy, gone real estate, gone passive and active investing in real estate. Okay. So now you mentioned something about a 10 flat and a 12 flat. And this podcast is really geared towards the newer investor and potentially the new real estate investor. So, those are terms that I didn't know a couple of years ago. Can you help us understand what that is?
Absolutely. I was looking at buying like a 10-unit apartment building or a 12 or 18-unit apartment building when I was living in Los Angeles. And I ended up doing, for my first deal, I did it passively, was 93 units in Tucson.
Okay.
And we can do larger deals when we gather together with more people.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit too, because I was similar. I didn't start or even have the desire to start in 10 and 12 units because that seemed so far off the horizon for me that I started with the small single family stuff. But yes, I got to the point where I wanted to go bigger faster after messing around with single families for a handful of years. And I started looking at those 10 or 12s, and I ran into a bunch of challenges even with those size of deals. So can you talk a little bit about the benefit of maybe investing in some larger deals, even as your first deal compared to those 10 or 12 units?
Yeah, the real advantage is diffusion of risk or spreading out the risk. In a single family, as you know, if you have a vacancy, 100% of your cash flow is gone. But in a 10 unit, you have a vacancy, that's 10% of your cash flow is gone. So you'll still be able to make your mortgage and your expenses. And in the 93 that I did the passive investment with some of my friends here in Arizona, the percentage is much lower, whatever 1 out of 93 is.
Okay. So now jumping though, even from a 10 or a 12 up to a 93, you talked about doing that with the team.
Yes.
Why go with the team versus trying to jump all in and take something down like that on your own?
It's very much a team sport. This industry, multifamily commercial real estate, is a team sport, and I had tried to do it. In past careers, I had tried to do it by myself. I don't know if I told you this, but prior to starting my technology company, I spent a few years as a commercial real estate broker.
Oh, you did?
Decades ago. I was
Okay.
in my 20s. As I tell people, I was 25 years old, therefore I knew everything.
Of course.
And so, and I did a bunch of random deals there. I did vacant land, restaurants, industrial property, office, retail, just a whole bunch of random
Okay.
tiny commercial deals and a little bit of, I did a few 6 flats and 3 flats and that kind of stuff. But I had not heard of syndication then, and I had shifted back into technology before I heard of syndication. I suppose I had heard the name syndication, but it never dawned on me that I could be a syndicator. I was, by then I had tunnel vision going to start my technology company.
Got it.
But here moving it was really when I was in California on my way to move to Arizona, I met some syndicators who I really liked and trusted. I don't know if I'm allowed to say their names or whatever on the podcast. So
Sure.
the team at Vertical Street Ventures has just been wonderful. I did my first limited partnership investment with them, and then I did my first GP with them, and they're amazing just in terms of just the things I've been able to learn and just the way they do business. So that
and
has
I
inspired me to
think
become a syndicator.
I think you have some additional experience with Vertical Street from an education standpoint as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm a member of the VSV Academy as well. So there are several of us involved there where we're learning in a hands-on way. And I've absorbed so much about asset management and acquisitions, especially, that I would not get any other way. You and I met at a VSV function, I think.
We absolutely
Did we
did.
meet?
Yes, we
I
did.
thought so. Yeah. At like an investors gathering where they were doing like a wine and cheese party for investors, those of us who had invested with them.
Yeah,
I guess
so
it was a
it's-
little bit more than wine and cheese. It was the food was really good.
It
not just
actually
wine
was.
and cheese.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
one of
it was
those
really good
things
food.
like, when you decide you're going to buy a Honda, all of a sudden you start seeing Hondas everywhere. Ever since I
Yes.
met you, I see you everywhere. You have probably been lurking all around me for years and years. I just didn't even know it. So
I've just been behind you. I just decided to sneak up on you one day.
there you go. There you go. Well, and maybe let's talk about that too, because that's
Yeah.
a big journey from, you didn't just wake up one day and decide you're going to be a real estate investor. It sounds like you've thought
Yes.
about this for years.
Yes.
You've been involved with it for years. So talk to me about that education progression, if you can, because it sounds like it's been a heck of a journey.
It has been. When I was in brokerage, 30 plus years ago, 30 plus years ago, when I was in brokerage, I learned all about cap rates and IIR, and we did all of that manually. We used to use an HP 12C calculator and a pencil and paper, and literally that's what we did. And I was one of the few people who started using spreadsheets because I had a technology background. But most people were doing all the calculations using the HP 12C, wonderful calculator, right? And that was my first education on the investing and all the numbers or whatever. So when I returned to it in the present day era, I would say, in the 2020 or later, I would say, I knew those definitions. I understood them, and underwriting, I understood how underwriting went. But underwriting had gone up another level. Now everyone is using spreadsheets, so I didn't have a special advantage there. Everyone's using them, and there's some really good models out there. You and I have talked about some of those models out there that are really good.
But I think
yeah.
I think it's really important that you understand what the calculations actually mean and what drives those as well. Like, it's very easy to punch a bunch of numbers into an Excel sheet and it spits it out.
Yes.
But if you actually know, like, IRR factors in the time value of money, that's
Yes.
important, and
Yes.
a lot of our listeners might not even understand the difference between cash on cash or ARR or IRR. And there's a lot of ways to go find that out. But you
Yes.
being in the trenches and figuring that out, I think adds to the value that you bring ultimately to your network and to your investors as well.
Oh, yes. And you just hit on a very important point when you said not only must you know the definitions and the numbers, we must know what drives them. And you just hit on something real big. Like ultimately what drives them is rent. Are the tenants, are the residents paying the rent on time? Are they paying market level rents or below market rents? Are we spending enough money to improve the units so that they want to pay the rent that we're asking? Or do they want to leave our property and go to one of our competitors' properties and pay them rent across the street or down the street, right? So when you said what drives them, it's the rent, it's what's happening with taxes. Are you in a municipality or a county where taxes are calculated in some crazy way, or do you have a 5% per annum cap on taxes as we do, as we have here in Maricopa County in Arizona? So there's a variety of things there, right? And then what drives rents are the residents working in high-paying jobs. Are there employers in the area? So all of those are we have to understand all of those. And if I was to cite a difference between what I know now versus what I knew 30 years ago as a broker, I understand more about the relationship between employment and rent and our IRR and our return on investment than I did before.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's been a long journey with years of study and research, and you've gained an expertise that maybe the traditional retail investor might not have. Would you agree?
Perhaps. And then in between there, I spent 21 years running a technology company. So I would look at real estate, but I wasn't immersed in it like, you were. Like, you did some amazing things during that time. You've told me about that separately, but you've done a lot of amazing things in that space. So there we go.
But let's not discount, and here we are just going back and forth with compliments, but running a business for 21 years, at the end of the day, these apartment complexes, these self-storage facilities, whatever this asset is that we choose, it is a business that needs to be run like a business in order to drive the returns to our investors. So let's backpedal a little bit. You went from a commercial broker, you ran your business for a number of years, you started to passive invest. Talk to me about kind of that transition period from business owner to passively investing to actually active investing now as well, I believe, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
So, yeah.
The transition, I spent a lot of time looking at deals and also looking at people running the deals. As you said, each deal that we invest in, each property we invest in, essentially it's a multi-million-dollar business secured by real estate. And I stole that exact description from Kyle Mitchell over at Vertical Street Ventures. So I'll give credit where it's due, and he may have stolen it from somebody, but I first heard it from him, and I thought, wow, that's a very succinct way to describe it.
Yeah.
And when I made a decision to invest passively and to invest in that deal in Tucson, I drove down there, I walked around down there, I walked around in the area, I looked at other properties nearby, and which is a lot more than most passive investors do, because really when you're passively investing, it's more important to vet the jockey than the horse.
Yeah.
It's more important to vet the operator than the property, because the operator is the one who will be making those day-to-day decisions about the property. The operator will hire, or in some cases fire, the on-site property management and the team that's there. So that's who you want to look at. I think it's very important to look at the person that's operating the deal.
Okay. Well, and maybe we can jump into that a little bit. Are there some best practices, or are there areas that you look at or questions you ask? What does that vetting process of the jockey look like for you?
Yes. The number one thing that I'm looking for is integrity. Is this the kind of person who will give me bad news when it's time to give bad news? You know, my brother is in the automotive industry. He has led teams of engineers for decades and is a very successful leader and executive in the automotive industry. Mm-hmm. And one thing he likes to say is bad news does not get better with time.
I love it.
And if you have, everybody can give good news. It's a pleasure to give good news. Yeah. It's a pleasure to say, hey, guess what? We're 100% occupied right now, and everybody's paying on time. And guess what? We're bumping the rents 23% per year for the next 10 years, and everybody's happy to pay it.
Right.
Which is a ridiculous statement. I don't want to set that expectation.
Yeah.
But to say something like, We have an issue with the on-site manager. They're not leasing up the property or not leasing up the units as effectively as we want them to. So we've decided to make a change. And that's bad news. And when do you deliver that, and how do you deliver that? And when you deliver that news, are you also delivering the action plan that you've put in place to deal with whatever that issue is? And so you evaluate that really by looking at what someone has done in the past. You and I both know, when we're investing, when you invest in like a money market fund or something, or a mutual fund, whatever it is, there's in the fine print at the bottom of the investment prospectus, whatever it says, past performance is no guarantee of personal performance, that little phrase. And yeah, past performance is no guarantee of personal performance, but what else have you got to measure by, right? It's the only thing. So you want to look at the character. Is that someone you're comfortable with? Is it someone that, do you trust the character? What have they done in the past where they've had to deliver good and bad news, where they've had to deal with obstacles and run through walls and produce results, even in the midst of irksome tasks and weighty responsibilities? Are they able to do that? So that's what you're looking at. So
I love that you bring that point up. I always like to ask operators, tell me about a time when things did not go as planned and how you handled it. And I cannot tell you how many times I've had operators say, we've never made a mistake and we've never had a challenge like that. And the second they do, I'm very, very polite. And I very quickly notice that I've got another call I've got to jump to. And I move on as fast as I can, because you know as well as I do, if you've operated in this business for any amount of time, problems come up, mistakes happen, and quite often it's how do you respond, and with what level of integrity do you respond when those things do happen up? Because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when they're going to happen. So yeah, very good.
Absolutely. Not if, but when. 100%.
Yeah. So you started doing the passive investing piece, and you've done a number of different deals, I believe, with that. But you chose to go one step further and become an active investor in the syndication space as well. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah. I always had the plan to become active when I became passive, and I viewed becoming a passive investor as a way to look at different operators, how they operated. I viewed that as part of my education. Yes, I get a very good return on investment as a passive investor. I get returns far beyond what I expected, because there's some tax advantages that I didn't understand initially that I understand much better now that I'm a passive investor that I'm getting. And after investing in a few passive deals, I decided to do an active deal. Again, I'm partnered with Vertical Street Ventures, Kyle Mitchell, Stephen Louis, Jenny Gu and Ronnie Gu, and also with Kathy Jang at Diamond Point Homes. And we're partnered on a deal, my first GP deal here in Phoenix, Arizona. Remarkable, because they all know more than me. They're all more experienced than me. And there's that thing, I think it was Pat Metheny who said, if you want to be a very good musician, get yourself in a band with other musicians who are really, really good, that you can learn from. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that, and I meet with a lot of folks that their sole end game is passive investing. And I think even if you talk to active investors, their goal is come over to active investing for a handful of years and generate some capital, but then someday we want to sit on the sidelines and become passive investors entirely, right?
Yes.
But let's talk, if we can, a little bit about how you actually got onto that active deal, because it sounds like there's a lot of people out there that want to be a part of this game, and they have a really, really hard time of doing that. So is there like a fast track? Is there some path that you can provide to the listeners on the best way to get a part of a GP, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I won't claim that it's the best way. It's the path that I took.
Sure.
It's been a successful path, and it's a path that I've seen other people take, and it's been successful for them too. One of my mentors, Rod Cleef, is one of my mentors. He likes to say, success leaves clues. In fact, I think he got that from Tony Robbins. So success leaves clues. So when we see that someone else is successful, it's helpful to follow in their path. We all want to be creative, and we want to be the first person to ski in that, fresh powder, or, be the first to put our footprints on the moon or whatever. But if you really want to be successful in business, there's a big advantage in following people who have already been successful at it. At least that's the way it's worked out for me.
Yep.
So I'm in the mentorship. I'm in the Warrior program that is led by Rod Cleef. I've learned a lot there. That has been a source of deals for me. I'm also a student in the Vertical Street Ventures Academy. That's how I got my first GP deal. That's how I really got to know the partners over there at VSV, and where I've really, I was already a passive investor in one of their deals, but being on the inside, in the inside of the sausage factory and seeing how the sausage gets made,
yeah,
they're people of integrity, and I've easily invest with them passively again. I knew I would do that anyway, but my conviction is even richer having been on the inside, and then having gotten to know you and your level of integrity. Like, I see a consistency in you between, you're always very much about saying what you're going to do and doing what you say and all of that. And I think it's important, if you're going to be a passive investor that wants to be an active investor, I think it's important to invest with multiple active investors first to see how they operate and learn different ways of operating.
Yep.
That's what I think.
I love it. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. And, you are a guy that I have watched, for the last handful of months or so, for probably about a year or coming up on a year. And when I think of Ray Hightower, I think you are an action taker. You're a high integrity guy. You're high energy, and you're just fun to be around, right? So people enjoy being around Ray Hightower, and the giver's gain mentality seems to be present in your life as well. So that's much appreciated. I feel like I've learned a ton from you too over the time that we've gotten to know each other.
Well, let's just say good things about it. Why don't we just do that? Let's play ping pong. I'll give you compliments.
Yeah. This was going to be 30 minutes, but
mutual.
It might be 2 or 3 hours. Yes.
So, So.
Well, let's do this too. You've kind of moved on to a new phase in your investing journey and your business journey. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Oh, capital raising. Yeah, that's wonderful. And as you know, I don't know if the listeners are aware, but really on the active side of investing, really there's three subsets, or three subsets or three pockets, you could call it. There's the capital raising, there's the asset management, and there's the acquisitions. And of course, acquisitions comes first, finding the property. Capital raising, making sure we have enough money to close and do the deal. And then asset management is really managing the property manager, making sure you hire the right property manager, and making sure that the business plan is executed.
Yep.
So you and I are both focused on capital raising right now. I'm doing some asset management with my on the GP deals, certainly. But,
sure. So what makes a good capital raiser, do you think? And what type of skills and personality types, like, why do you feel like this is your superpower today?
I think to be an effective capital raiser, number one, you have to know that you're looking out for the people whose capital you're taking and putting to work. It is about stewardship. It is about an investor I talked to years ago. He said, I'm very active in the Boy Scouts of America. I grew up in the Scouts. I'm an Eagle Scout. I'm an assistant Scoutmaster. I'm very active in the scouting. And when we take these scouts out on camping trips, that's a sacred trust, because their parents are trusting us to look out for their boys, and we try to make sure that parents come with us too, because we want the parents to be involved. We're not a drop-off service. We want them to be involved. But in the same way that we look out and make sure that the scouts have a safe time and a fun time, we go on canoe trips. We do rifle and shotgun. We do, fire building. They learn how to use an axe and a saw. They learn first aid, all that stuff. And in the same way that we are good stewards over the scouts, we have to be good stewards over the dollars that we're taking from our investors. Actually, I got that metaphor from an investor who was years ago. He said, Ray, the same way you're a good steward over the scouts, you need to be a good steward over my money. And wow, that's a great metaphor. It really hits home with me because I'm so active in the Boy Scouts.
Well, and
Yeah.
the fact that you use the word stewardship, just, it
Yes.
rings so true to me. I love that word. I think that we are stewards in many different areas of our life. And
Yes.
I feel if we are good stewards, we are blessed with additional resources. And that can run
True.
across different channels and different avenues of our life. So, not to get spiritual or not, but I believe we're stewards in many ways, and I think we're
Yes.
blessed. Um, and it, it kind of just comes back to common sense. Like, if an investor gives me some dollars and I do a very good job with it, odds are he's going to consider giving me those dollars again, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and if an investor were to give me some dollars and I am careless and I'm not doing due diligence and I am not putting their interest above mine, then I would
Hmm.
expect that the investor would not give me future dollars. So,
Yes. There it is. There it is.
I'm so glad you say that word, because I love the word stewardship and I love it more in
Yes.
practice. So
Yes. Absolutely. We have to be that. And the world would be much better if we all looked at it that way. We're all stewards over something, over our lives or yeah, we're all stewards over something.
So yeah,
Yeah.
let's see here. We are kind of coming to the top of the hour, and I definitely want to give you an opportunity to talk about any current projects or what you're excited about today with the business. So here's your chance. What's your 30, as you say it on your podcast, what is your 30-second elevator pitch for your business today?
Thank you so much, Randy. Well, glad to meet you. My name's Ray Hightower. I run a company called Bridgetown Partners. We buy multifamily apartment properties, we fix them up, and we give people a great place to live. And we give investors a chance to partner with us on that journey. Investors who put money into our deals, they enjoy tax advantages, preservation of capital, and return on investment. And that's what we do.
I love it. Well, take my money. Actually, you've already taken my money. So yes, thank you for
It's a
that.
pleasure. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
It's always good. It's always good.
And for
So
the
that's what we do in a
listeners,
nutshell.
the listeners' information, I do personally invest with Ray Hightower because I think he has been a good steward of others' money, and I trust him with mine. So if you're looking for another opportunity, definitely reach out to Ray. So with that, I do have kind of some quicker questions. I don't call it the lightning
Yes.
round or anything special like that at
Okay.
this point. Maybe that'll come.
Okay.
But is there one particular niche that you focus on, or one that you're investigating more now?
Yes. Multifamily apartment properties in Arizona, Tennessee, and Texas.
And why?
Arizona, because job growth, income growth, population growth, all of the things that bring residents to a state that creates demand for what we do with multifamily properties. Those same factors apply to Tennessee and Texas, specifically Nashville, Tennessee, where I'm actively raising capital right now. It's been a wonderful time, wonderful adventure there. And in Texas, Boca Chica and Brownsville, Texas, right where SpaceX is building rockets. And I
Okay.
can talk about it in detail. That is something, if I start talking about that, I'll keep talking. So ask your listeners to hit me up and I'll talk to them about Texas, specifically Boca Chica and Brownsville and SpaceX and rockets.
Okay. I think there could be a Tesla in your parking lot, I'm guessing. So yes.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
All right. So as a passive investor who's personally placing capital as well, are there any special strategies or anything super exciting about that you're working on right now with your dollars?
Yes, yeah. You know what's really exciting to me about dollars and passive investing? I just had a meeting with my accountant about 10 days ago or so. Yeah, about 12 days ago, whatever. We were going through my taxes. And what was so exciting to me is that because of the passive investments that I had made in 2021, the amount of money that I was able to save on taxes is mind blowing
Yeah.
because of bonus depreciation. Bonus depreciation blows my mind, and it is a very huge tax advantage. Now, of course, it's 100% this year. It's going down to 80% next year, but it's still there and it's still powerful. Bonus depreciation, for your listeners who don't know, it is the government paying us to make sure that we provide housing to other citizens of this country.
Yep.
And it's a huge benefit. Talk to your CPA about it. If your CPA does not know about it, talk to me. I think Randy and I use the same CPA, same wonderful guy. Can I say Justin Jensen?
You absolutely can. He'll be a podcast guest shortly as well. So
Justin Jensen has been remarkable as a CPA and as an educator in accounting and taxation, and also in barbecue.
And barbecue as well. That's good to know. That's good to know.
Yes,
So,
yes.
well, very good. Let's see here. So what about the new passive investor? Any education or podcast or books? Like, where would you direct them first to learn more about passive investing?
Yeah, one of the first things I would do, I would certainly listen to your podcast because you're focusing on providing education for passive investors, and you have a variety of guest interviewees. And the fact that you're having Justin on is wonderful because most of your passive investors will not know about bonus depreciation. I did not know about bonus depreciation until I started investing passively. And it's blown my mind, and it produces massive returns. So I would certainly get on board with your podcast. I would listen to other multifamily podcasts that are out there. Vertical Street Ventures has one that's out there. I would look for books. What books? Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but also Cash Flow Quadrant and the Rich Dad's Guide to Investing. But there's another one. There's a tax book, Tax-Free Wealth, by Tom Wheelwright. Tom Wheelwright was the mentor to Justin Jensen, our accountant. And Tom Wheelwright writes about why and how, as investors, why and how we should get those big benefits that we get as passive investors. So that's where I would start. I would probably start with Tom Wheelwright's book because it's a very easy read, but it gives a lot of details and it's very eye-opening.
Awesome.
So, yeah, I would do that. Yes.
Okay. And where can our audience find you, and how can we support you and what you're doing?
Excellent. If you go to rayhightower.com, that's the on-ramp to everything I do. From rayhightower.com, you'll have links to bridgetownpartners.com, which is the vehicle that I use for active investing and where I bring in passive investors for my deal. And you will also have an on-ramp to BizDayGlobal, which is our podcast. And BizDayGlobal is all about business. We believe that we're very big proponents of business and capitalism. We believe that when we're doing business with each other, we're less likely to fight with each other because we'll have reasons to cooperate. So go to rayhightower.com and you'll have an on-ramp to all the things that I'm working on. And I look forward to working with you.
Awesome. Awesome. And then one final fun one that selfishly I love to hear. Tell me one bucket list item that you've recently completed and what's next on your bucket list to check off.
I recently jumped out of a perfectly good airplane.
Awesome.
I went skydiving, so that's wonderful. And one of my bucket list items is to make sure that I visit every continent on planet Earth. I have visited every continent except for Australia and Antarctica, and so those are coming up. There's some things I'm doing here in the States. I've been traveling every month this year. I've been traveling, in the States, working on, as you know, the deals that we're working on.
Yeah.
So I do want to, perhaps next year, I'll get a chance to go to Australia and Antarctica, and I'm fascinated by that. So there we go.
Yeah. Funny story.
Yes.
All 7 continents I have on my bucket
Yes.
list as well.
Yes,
And
yes.
My wife and I just got back from Spain, and
Yes.
we literally planned 3 days to go down to the southern tip of Spain, take a ferry across the strait to
Yes.
step foot in Morocco, Africa.
Yes.
So we've been to Africa for just a day. We definitely want to go
yes.
back, but I have
Yes.
checked the buckets for the Africa bucket as well. So
wonderful. Yeah, Morocco, where the Moors were and are. Yeah, wonderful. Yes, I've been to other parts of the African continent. I haven't been to Morocco yet. So yeah, I gotta check that out.
It's a must see.
Yes, thank you.
Well, very good. Well, Ray, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It's been just a super pleasure having you here. I always enjoy spending time with you, and excited that I'm going to get to expose my audience to you as well. So thank you so much for coming. And
Randy, thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here. I always respect and enjoy your level of preparation. So thank you for having me on your podcast. Thank you.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, thank you again for joining us today. Be sure to reach out to Ray, follow him on all the social platforms that he's a part of, connect with him, pick up the phone and schedule some time with him. Really, really great partner to have in this space. And do the work that you need to do to get the education to start investing in this amazing space of passive investing in real estate. And thank you again so much for joining us for today. And we will talk to you all soon.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. It was an amazing episode. We know we sure learned a lot, and we hope you did as well. We want to take a second and thank you so much for viewing or listening to this episode. And please just know that we only ask for one favor, and that is to make this life magnificent. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.